is Russell Kane and Kit de Waal talking all things education and the National Extension College and just how great it is. But I'm going to pile in now and ask Russell, what was your best subject at school?
English, definitely. English language rather than English literature at school until I was 16, because no one taught me how to. No, and I was never taught to appreciate posh books. However, I enjoyed deconstructing how language worked. And it was 2 different GCSEs when I was at school. I have no idea whether it still is. That and chemistry and biology I loved. Basically, there was a like seeing how things work part of my brain, where the sort of learning about grammar and language was somehow connected with what happens if you smash carbon into oxygen. Yeah.
And so when you were at school, were you like a good student? Were you a model student? Did all your homework, handed it in?
Up until 11, when I was at primary school, I was top of the class, bright. And there was even at one point, my mum was told to consider that I sat the exam for our like special school in the other direction, if you like. There was a school called Latimer in the north of Enfield, not that Latimer, another one. It's in the north Enfield, Edmonton area, and you have to sit an exam there. It's very selective, and you can go there if you're like this top academic tier. And I was going to sit that exam, but then my mum was getting some cheese off the cheese lady at the co-op, and she told her, "Don't do it. It's a precious school, love." So I never did the exam because the cheese lady in the co-op said her son went there, he passed the exam, and it was a precious school.
And
so
do you wish you'd gone?
Well, at the time, no, I was glad. I went to the next best thing, which was like a selective church school, which was still quite a good school in my area. But the problem with comprehensive education, not that I'm advocating selective education, everyone I know and care about failed their 11 plus and has got a chip on their shoulder. I happen to be married a girl from Trafford where they still do the 11 plus. So my brother-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, my mum, my dad, all 11 plus, shame. So I'm not advocating that. However, as soon as I was amongst a mixed environment where there were people that liked smoking weed, liked losing their virginity, liked fighting, my value system inverted because I wanted to be popular. There's a part of me that wonders, had I been at Latimer where the value system was study your ass off, learning in Latin and English is cool, maybe my value system would have identified with that. So yes, on that level, I do now. At the time, I was glad to get to the Bishop Stopford because it was a sort of nice middle of the road one, did get good results. But as I say, as soon as I got there, I was always in like the top, like the B set. There was like 6 sets and I might be in set 2 for a couple of subjects, set 1 for one. But it was dangerous to be in set 1A, particularly if you're a boy. It was dangerous to be in that set because other stuff was going to happen to you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and did you, in your family, I mean, I don't know, how many are there of you in your family? You're an only child?
It was just me. It was me and my younger brother who came into the same school 3 years after me. I don't know why my camera's blurring like that. It's almost like I've gone into like a misty nostalgia.
It's like Vaseline on the lens.
It's a flashback segment. No, so yeah, my brother's 3 years younger than me, and he was never academic and always, was a little bit harder to make friends, struggled to hold a pen, struggled with his handwriting, struggled with his reading a bit more. So he found himself at the other end in the bottom 2 sets for nearly every subject as far as I can remember. Then my brother did in fact turn out to have an illness that came out in the end, sort of schizophrenic type illness. But at the time, he was just one of the kids that was in the slightly lower set and a bit naughtier than me. I wasn't naughty. I wasn't smoking weed. I wasn't losing my virginity, damn. And I wasn't fighting. But I was just invisibly drifted by in the sort of B plus area. That was a safe place to be, where you could get your 5 GCSEs without getting punched.
And you talk there about the comprehensive system. There's 5 of us in our family and 3 of us rather, passed 11 plus, and 2, it had gone by the time the other 2 came along.
Right.
And it was, one of my sisters still talks about it as like a thing. You're 11, it's the most arbitrary thing in the world, and yet
Exactly.
It still colours you for the rest of your life as perhaps
Absolutely.
your first failure. It's probably for most people, it's your first public and objective test.
Absolutely.
And you failed it.
That's why I would never back it. But how do you harvest,
No, I don't.
particularly male work? Like I never any of the bright girls. They yes, they got a bit of like bitchy or girly SWAT Hillary type bullying, but it wasn't like physical violence. So how can you skim off someone like me who really wants to like be a nerd and learn chess and learn English language, but was terrified of being in that bottom tier that had such a of social popularity at school, who had such a tough time of it?
I think it's the grammar school education I had. You know, we had teachers with mortarboard, and black gowns, and we had to use a fountain pen, and we learnt Latin, and this was just a grammar school, and it was a superb education. You could not buy it now, and you obviously wouldn't want to. However, I know I was better educated than some of my siblings who went to a comprehensive school. I don't advocate grammar school either, but I think there has to be a way to support excellence that doesn't run into social mobility, which I'm massively against. I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
I think social mobility is cherry picking, and I think it should be communities that move socially, not that child, take him out of his family, send him to a posh school because he will not be able to go back. That's a fact.
No. I know the only thing, when they've studied and played around with this, the only study I've seen that really worked, I can't remember which book it was in. It might have been in Freakonomics or something like that. They went to the most messed up part of New York, in the biggest tower blocks with the most single mothers, most drug using, most broken homes, and took those kids and did an experiment, because they're like, if it works there, it'll work anywhere. And the only thing that seems to work, no one likes. Parents don't like it, teachers don't like it, and that is longer school days and shorter school holidays. The reason being, you can actually measure this stuff. I think it's called like the PISA measurement, where you can measure the percentage that your home life impacts on your social outcomes versus your educational life. And different countries have different ratings. The UK is 50-50. So you are half influenced by what's going on at home and half at school. So school can only do half the battle, because you're finishing at 3 and you're off for 6 weeks. You're not going to museums. You're not going to the gallery. You're not going to the theatre. You're playing over the park, and your dad might get a takeaway at the weekend, and you might learn to drink and get a hand job by the dog shit bit. That's what my holidays were like without the hand job. But when you have a longer school day, you coming home, and I know this sounds like sort of pseudo boarding school, but you come home at 6 p.m. and that school environment goes up to 70-80%. Countries that do that anyway, regardless of schooling, say a country like Finland, have one of some of the best educational outcomes with comprehensive schools in the whole of the European area, because the school takes the lion's share of influence on the life, and they start school at 7 as well. They're interesting.
And one of the things that they do so well in Finland is teachers are extremely well rewarded and supported in that job, because it's a very prestigious job, because they value it. And also the schools are really well resourced. So, if you're at school from 7 till 6, you are not in the classroom for all of those hours. You are doing extracurricular. You are eating meals, nutritious meals.
Absolutely.
You are part of a community, which is itself the school, part of a community. So it's that model.
I don't think middle class people realise how dangerous school holidays are. That's when the damage is done. I had a brilliant childhood, hard-working dad, hard-working mum, holidays, food on the table. Yes, we were working class. Yes, it was a council house that we bought. I didn't want for anything. I'm not having a go at my childhood. But the fact of the matter is this: when I finished school in July, my brain slowly turned to mush till September, whilst Lottie and Henry are continuing with tutors and going to Verona. They're not going all-inclusive in Mallorca to drink themselves silly, which I still love, by the way, and still do. They're going on cultural holidays. So they're coming back like Tyson, jacked up on steroids, ready to drop a punch in the next year, and I can't even remember how to hold a pen.
But don't you think part of that problem is that, let's say you've got that 6-week holiday when you're just going to be doing other things, half of it is the way, for me particularly, and I'm going to talk about English because it's basically the only, I was good at all subjects, the only one I liked, was reading, was literature and what words could do, just like you. But it was so irrelevant, learning the classics was so, Dickens, really? Shakespeare, really?
Yeah.
Now, I know that schools are still, in English, studying the same books that I studied 40, 50 years ago. The curriculum needs, certainly in English, needs a massive change so that they are studying books that have a relevance to.
Let's get My Name is Leon on there. I'll back you. Let's get it on the curriculum.
And also, decolonise curriculum, which I would like to see,
Yes.
or a wider, if not decolonise, and that has a place, a wider selection so that we can do away with the canon. And the other thing, of course, for me is, making your choices about what you're going to do for the rest of your life, but making those choices at 14. I just think that's absolutely fucking stupid. Who knows? Who knows themselves at 14? And if you haven't got the sort of parents that are going to sit you down and have 25 conversations about what you might do, and also give you the idea that the world's your oyster. What would you like to do? Oh, I'd like to be a brain surgeon. Yeah, okay then. How many families can actually support their child in that? Very few. So you have particularly working class children not thinking the world's my oyster, not thinking I can do whatever I want, but making choices at 14 about what you're going to still love to do at 40. I don't think so.
No. And the other hidden thing in our education system has got nothing to do with class. I can't believe it still goes on, is that I was born on August the 19th. I don't know why my Wikipedia page is incorrect. My birthday is August the 19th. If you are born after about June the 2nd, June the 3rd, you are the smallest, youngest, and least mature. You haven't caught up at 14. You're still shorter. Your brain is still a year behind. You never really catch up. I had to get to uni before I had that moment. That moment I know you had, because I've just read your memoir. I think that moment happens so late. if you're a working class and miss the boat, or if you're young. When you look at, I'm looking at my nieces, my niece versus my daughter, and they're both they're 1 year apart, but they're both born in September, October. When I look at my older niece, who was born in August, we've had to take her down a year. We've managed to successfully campaign to get her back into year 9 so she can get a better run up to her GCSEs. It's ridiculous. I don't know how you fix it, but how can you say a 5-year-old is the same as someone who's still 4? I mean, the difference is unbelievable, and you never catch up.
You never catch up. I was July 26th, same as you.
Right, so you had the same thing.
My best friend was born on September the 3rd. There's a
ridiculous.
Year between.
Crazy.
And you feel that all the way through school, that you are playing catch up educationally and particularly socially as well. So
there's good stats on it. They say if you look at the Premier League football, there's hardly any footballers born in the summer. Hardly any, British ones. I don't, because obviously the school years are different abroad. Hardly any. It massively skewed towards September and October. What does that tell us about education? Well, it tells us that their talent isn't biologically born. It says they were the right height at the right time to get favourable treatment. And you can bet your bottom dollar the same thing's happening academically by accident of birth, whether it's race, class, or whatever. But date of birth is the most pure discrimination I've ever heard. We talk about something you can't change.
And I know that the Montessori way of educating children, which again comes back to what you were saying about school holidays, they do 4 weeks on, I think, and a week off. That's it. And then I think there's 2 weeks in the summer. So you never have those terms that are sometimes interminable. Did you like that? But, long terms, and then 3 weeks holiday, and you just you don't know where you are. Of course, also feeding into school holiday, going on holiday if you do, and the many children that don't go on holiday. And
any social deprivation or abuse or like you say, malnutrition that's happening, that's ramped up to 10 because you've got 6 weeks of it on the bounce.
Absolutely. So when you left school, did you stay on at sixth form?
No, I didn't. And what was annoying was my English teacher. They obviously saw something that I couldn't yet see in myself. I knew I was naturally bright and the funny one and all of that. But they hinted that if I put my foot down, even though I only got 5 GCSEs, I got an A, a B and 3 Cs, that there was a chance I could be made head boy of the school. Like this honour was dangled there. And I still went, shut up, I'm not doing that like pussy. I wanted to leave. By now I was smoking things I shouldn't be smoking and all that. So I thought what I really wanted to do was just sign on or do nothing. But I knew if I went to the local A-level college around the corner, I could effectively do nothing and buy myself 2 years of raving at the weekend and then just recovering in history, English and media studies, which I did for 2 years and did not grade in any of them. So that's how I wasted 16 to 18.
And then
Getting
what
messed
did
up
you
in a
do?
car park opposite the college, more or less, most times. Not in a kind of sad, junky way. I had a blast. I had an
Yeah,
absolute blast for 2 years,
yeah,
but ultimately education had left me. And so then my dad's like, there wasn't negotiable. It's like you work or you're out. End of
yeah,
negotiation, door shut. So then I got a job. I started. Got a job working in a Rolex watch sales room. And initially, it was just the general watches of Switzerland, and I specialised in Rolex. And I loved it at first. I was really good at selling, 9 grand a year, the big bucks with a bit of commission. And I think I would have probably just had a normal working class life, maybe gone on to be a watch manager. I don't know what I would have done. I was raving at the weekend, abusing my body, but fine in the week. I was the worst type of person. I'm a quick recoverer. And then one night at this rave, I was about 18 and a half. By now, I'm living with my nan. I've fallen out with my dad, who said something a bit right wing. We had an argument. So I'm living in a housing association flat with my nan in the box room. I didn't even have wardrobes. I had pegs on the wall for my clothes. It was like I was being haunted by my own outfits. I live with my alcoholic nan who doesn't get dressed. She just lives in a green dressing gown, drinks vodka from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We were like this just messed up odd couple. And I'm at a rave one Saturday about 4 in the morning on the Sunday, just like chewing my face off by the speaker. And this girl comes towards me about an inch taller than me, literally like one of those models, and just hands me her phone number. I was like, what the I don't know what she had seen in this sweaty pepperami dancing. So of course I phoned her. We start dating, and it's like one of those messed up chemical raver falling in love hard romances. I'm 19, she's 18. She starts university, Middlesex University. So what's happening is, when I go back to hers, I'm now going back to Hall's. And when I'm getting my already old man chip on the shoulder, cheap suit, dragging myself to the train station at 7 a.m. body over to White Hart Lane train station, she's like putting on like a trendy top, holding a book and going to sit on a lawn, drinking coffee, talking about ideas and partying on a Tuesday and having a lie in. I'm like, oh my God. I'll never forget it. I got the diary entry. I stopped one day at work and it hit me. I've been robbed by accident of my birth. My mum and dad haven't done anything wrong. I've just become the statistic I was always going to be. My dad's as a manual labourer. He takes asbestos out. My mum's the cleaner. Therefore, I'm some form of manual labourer, or at the very least shop worker. You normally are whatever your mum and dad are 80% of the time. It's worse now than it was in the 60s. There's less mobility. But it hit me. I was like, I've been conned. I should be there pouncing about on the lawn using, words like montane and post-structuralism. I didn't know what any of these words meant yet. I still did not know the difference. I'm 19 and didn't understand fully who Oscar Wilde was versus Jane Austen. I thought Pride and Prejudice was by Oscar Wilde. I thought The Importance of Being Earnest was by Charlotte. I knew nothing about nothing. All I knew is I had a natural tool, like a Ferrari that had never been started. No one had thought to put the key in. And I literally that night went home, told my nan. It must have been Yellow Pages because we couldn't afford the internet. And that's when I was like, what do you do to get an A level if you're working full time? And then I looked this thing up called National Extensions College. And they said, we'll send you an A level in a box, right? And you study it out of the box and you have to phone your tutor and post an essay off once every couple of weeks and they'll get me to an A level. I phoned the same university this girl was at just because I was lame and was in love with her. Thought I'll just go Middlesex, it's next door. And they said, if you can get to 21, we'll class you as a mature student. You need one A level, A or B, and we'll take you. So there was no competition. Sociology it had to be. I was already annoyed. I wanted to know what was going on. And I got the fastest ever A grade from enrollment to sitting the exam, which I had to sit as like an external student on a separate table with everyone looking at me with the invigilator at my local college. And I got the highest A grade that year. And Betty Boothroyd gave me an award at this National Extension College ceremony. The picture's in my memoir. And she handed me this award. I don't know if National Extension College still do that, but it was an award for this phenomenal. It wasn't done in intelligence. It was done in fury. As these names came into my mouth, I'd never even heard of Karl Marx, structuralism. So I never even heard these concepts, didn't know what they were. It was like someone had pulled the Wizard of Oz's curtain back. I'm like, oh my God, you eaten fucks, turning the cogs. I got the A. And when I got to uni, of course, I was massively behind. I was on my English degree. What I was doing was I was getting up 2 hours for everyone else, and literally, like the autodidact, who's a pathetic character in a Sartre novel, Nausea, I started from A and read to Z and back again. All the authors I thought I should know. I made mind maps on the wall, including the French ones, Zola, Balzac, Flaubert, joined them all up like an astronomer's map, as well as the text on the course. And I caught up manually. And then I overtook them. And 3 years later, I was the only person to get a first. No one else got a first in my year. I was the only one.
And I have to say, you are one of the most I've read a lot, but you outdo me every time. You are one of the most well-read.
Because I'm keen. But if you look on this shelf here, this is just because of something you wrote. So look what's ready to read. I've got J.G. Farrell, The Siege of Krishnapur, and Alan Fournier, because at the end of your memoir, you listed the 6 books that changed your life, and I hadn't read 3 of them. I'm like, I'm not having that. So they're up to be done next. I was like, I'm not having that. I was like, what's Le Grand Mur? I've never heard of that. I'm like, right, Kit, I'll have some of that. But I had one massive problem which couldn't be blagged through, which is something working class people or people from an ethnic background, maybe with foreign parents, never talk about. And it's a hidden shame. And I don't know how everyone else got through it. So I arrived at the uni with these tough kids. Yes, I'm reading my Austen. I started with Pride and Prejudice. I had a massive issue. I had a small vocabulary and didn't know what any of the words meant. I'll never forget the first. So I made a decision. I'm going to learn them manually every time I encounter the word. First word I ever got it. I'll never forget it. Card number 1. Impudent was the first word, ironically. It was in Pride and Prejudice, which was the first book not on the syllabus that I read. So what I decided to do was have a card system. And every time I encountered a word I didn't know, by now I'm 22 years old nearly, English born, British, collecting words like some sort of terrified Syrian that's just arrived. And I would write impudent and all its cognates, impudence, impudently, with diacritic marks. The reason being, what am I going to do? Go to posh Ollie and say, excuse me, mate, how do you pronounce impudent? I can't ask a tutor, I'm too embarrassed. So I had to learn the diacritic alphabet. There's no internet at this point to say this is how the word's pronounced. So I had to learn it was impudent, stress on the first syllable. It could have been impudent. It wasn't, it's impudent. I had to teach myself that. I end up with nearly 3,000 of these cards, which I did on the loo as I'm walking. And it just looked like I was studying to all the other students, so it looked fine. I was so ashamed that I burnt these cards about 10, 15 years ago.
No.
Burnt them. I was terrified that anyone had found out that my vocabulary was fake, because initially I had to use these words in a fake way. I wasn't like in the bar saying impudent, but there was real basic stuff I didn't know. Posh, what you call posh words, and you can tell my posh words because I pronounce them better than my real accents. Like, you know what I mean? You can have the sambuca. If I use the word impudent, I pronounce it properly.
Yeah.
So you can tell where I've learned I've learned them after. So I had to build. How do other people? If I was foreign, no one would bat an eyelid. If I just arrived from Nigeria or something, that word of English, everyone would be like, "Good on you, man. Go on, Olatunda, build your vocabulary." But because I was English, it was shameful. And the idea that someone might catch me showing off using the word impudent and know that I was just doing it to show off, it was like a fear. So I burnt the cards. And I only stopped using the cards when the word occurred naturally in my thought. And I thought, right, it's in me now. That's when the card would be discarded and put on the...
So how have you got to the point where you can talk about that now? You're saying that. What changed for you?
Getting the degree, first of all, and then just realising, I am actually allowed to have access to this knowledge, and for it, I think just feeling like it's truly embedded and truly like I've sort of established my position. I'm on my little cliff top now. I've built my house. It's all good. I'm ready to talk about some of the stuff that went down on the lower ledge without getting embarrassed about it. The same way I can tell a story of a gig going wrong, of me being booed on stage in the early days. And it's funny, I probably wouldn't have spoken about it a year later. Maybe I wouldn't have spoken about it 2 years later, but 3 years, I got booed off when I was new, but not now, I'm a legend. It's that sort of distance. And also, there must be other boys, girls, and everyone in between these days who are like me, who are like, how do I learn the word impudent? The thing you've got now is the internet, but it won't take away the shame of the first time you use that word.
Yeah.
I remember hearing the kid opposite me in halls use the word obstreperously correctly and in context, and thinking, I can't use that word because of how I sound. I would sound ridiculous. Obstreperous just means like noisy, by the way, if you're wondering what it means, everyone watching it. It basically just means noisy and loads of noise going off. It's a beautiful word. And I thought, if I went, it's really obstreperous in the student, but the nature of my Cockney sound, it's like a sort of, not racism, or I don't know what you would call it. They're words that I still to this day can't use because of my accent. Were I to be Giles Brandreth, though, and say, what an obstreperous atmosphere, it's fine. Still, now I wouldn't use the word obstreperous, for example, along with a lot of the others. So I'm wondering, there must be other people out there whose mum and dads are cleaners or whatever, or they're single parent who are having to jump and they're having to artificially pimp their vocabulary. It's the weirdest thing.
It is a weird thing, and it's also what is called part of what's called cultural capital. So you have, if you are, let's say, take two 18-year-olds, you're both going for an interview at university, you have same brains. Absolutely the same brains, they've both got the same scores, same exam results. You will have a child, if you can call an 18-year-old a child, who has a cultural capital. They recognise cues, for example, from the person asking them the questions.
Exactly.
They can use the right word. They can sit in the right chair. Their bearing will say, I have done this before. And that's cultural capital. Or a throwaway comment about holidays, weather in San Moritz. Do you know what I mean? So that's one. And then you've got this other one. I can say noisy, but I can't say obstreperous, and I'm not comfortable, and I had to buy those shoes. Do you know what I mean? All that shit. You're walking in with the same brains and the same, maybe more brains, and the same desire to learn. And your cultural capital is like this. Yeah. Because you can't use the words, you've got the Cockney accent or the Brummie accent, and you're a bit embarrassed to say something, a bit clever because you feel like a prat.
And also, it's not from a man thing. It's not. I've been taught that's not masculine. It's not masculine to read and to talk about. It's gay, or it's effeminate, or it's suspect. That's going nowhere. Trust me. I love clubbing. Yeah, I'm a weird. Chris Ramsey calls me a walking Venn diagram, and it's held me back in my career because people don't know where to pigeonhole me. And I'm not doing it on purpose. I genuinely like dancing to R&B. I genuinely like Ibiza. I genuinely like books. Sorry, I like all those things. But you try and bust out a book at like Ocean Beach or an Ibiza party, it would be people would film it. As though there's something in some parts of working class culture where learning is like not allowed. I took what did I take? I took a Henry James on an 18 to 30 shortly after I graduated, where I was like so steroided up on books. We went on an 18 to 30, me and my mate Dan, and I was reading Henry James by the pool. And don't get me wrong, I partied at night, but during the day you're sunbathing. And I was like, what am I going to do? Just lay here vegetating? So I'm going to read Portrait of a Lady. Well, that lasted 2 days. But it just was like, it went round the hotel. Hey, we're in the book, wanger. It's no different. I suspect it's just the same now.
Absolutely, I think it is the same. And I think the only way to perhaps break that down is to have role models who are still, because what happens so often when people move out of their preordained space and they do become, let's say, learned, they leave it behind. They don't inhabit that space. They don't straddle it. They don't be that weird hybrid. So you become one or you stay the other. And I think the only way we can get over that is to have role models, people who are talking with the accent they were brought up in about, I like clubbing and I like this and that's a good book. And also I heard recently, what's his name? Damien Lewis, actor. And he did a 5-minute to camera, dressed in all the gear, speech, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears right now. I have read that 100 times. I sort of know it. I could probably recite it. I have never seen it and understood it because he acted it out like a mate. Do you know what? I'm going to tell you something now. And I was, oh my God, I get it.
Oh, where's that? That sounds great.
Oh, I'll send you a link.
Watch it.
It's so good. I was a bit choked at the end. It was so affecting. And I think the way that we are taught so often, first of all, Shakespeare and all that is rubbish. And actually, Shakespeare is fantastic, but it's never brought alive, except that you go to the RSC and you sit there and you're very uncomfortable and you're scared to cough and you hope you've turned off your phone. And it's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to tell, and it's embarrassing to be seen there. And it's not until we can break down some of that exclusivity of not only Shakespeare and all the rest of it, but just reading and learning and not have shame. And I truly believe it's role models. Look at Stormzy, who has funded a scholarship. He's got his own publishing imprint, so that different stories can be told from all sorts of backgrounds, especially from black kids, especially for black boys, stories that are going to say, look, you can read and you can write and you can own this space. And I truly think that's the way through, as well as things like the National Extension College that aren't writing people off at 16. Oh, you've got to go and work in a shop. That's it, dude. You are done at 16.
Yeah. It was just the important thing. That's the practical thing with the National Extension College. They provided a way for me to learn after 5 p.m. at weekend, to do it flex around my crazy housing association, clubbing, selling watches life. I found enough gaps in there. Honestly, it's going to sound so wanky to watch it. It was the moment that started everything to this very point where I'm in the privileged position to sit talking to you and all of that. If I had not been able to do that A level, then nothing else would have followed. The fact I picked sociology, I mean, of all the things to have picked, it was like someone just dropped a match into this tinderbox. And I forget. Do you know, it's funny you're saying about what Stormzy's doing, because a lot of people are having a go at, identity politics, world's gone mad, blah, 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 snowflakes and all that. Maybe some of it has gone a bit far, and I'm in comedy, so you know what I mean? I'm on landmines daily. But I tell you what I've really learned about myself in the last 5 to 10 years, just listening to whether it might be female comedians or female journalists, female politicians, or people of colour, or someone who's talking about how they sometimes feel they have to conform to a stereotype that's been put on them. I was speaking to Judy Love about the angry black woman stereotype, and you feel yourself becoming the stereotype someone's projected onto you. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing that my entire fucking life. The more cockney and moron I can see to make people feel comfortable, I do it in every environment. That's my whole act half the time. But people that come to the theatre, they get to see both. I've got the confidence to show that. But when I'm out and about socially, I'm like, oh my God, I'm conforming to a stereotype that's been put on me by the very thing I'm railing against.
It's very, very true. And part of that is we have to own it. And again, I think the more people that you see that don't do it and have the balls or have the guts and the confidence to say, I am going to read Henry James in Ibiza. Do you know what I mean? And you stick to it and you go, no, do you know what I mean? I'm going to do it. That takes a level of confidence that, not many people are going to have. It also takes being in a society and a world where nuance is allowed, where a range of identities. Russell Kane has a range of identities. I have a range of identities. I'm Irish, I'm black, I'm Brummie, I'm working class, I've got a middle class lifestyle. I could lay another 12 identities down on that. And until we allow and expect people to have these multiple identities, we are going to write off the Cockney geezer and the angry black woman and say, got you, I know who you are. We need to get over that.
So true. And, again, it sounds so wanky, but learning and expanding our minds is a way to do it. It's why National Extension College is so important, because if you do bounce out of that system at age 16 and you end up working full time, 16, 17, 18, there's so few ways to learn. It must be so easier now with online as well. And the work National Extensions College, the internet has made this a little bit easier. It's just getting that message out there. But what happens a lot of the time, people get too far down the road before they realise. I had this Madeleine soaked cup of tea moment with this, tall model girl that wanted to date me in a smoky nightclub. It's like something out of a film. That brought probably my moment forward by years. I probably would have got to 26, 27, 28 before I realised, shit, I'm messing my life up. But, seeing a posh girl pouncing off over a fizzy wine on a bit of grass, I got angry. And I wanted it for myself. Mine was pure jealousy, envy, and anger. Don't write those off as tools. They can be amazing if you weaponize them properly.
And for me, I started reading literature at 21 because I was fucked and my head had gone and I was scared to take any more drugs. And so I had to have something to read at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that was my, and never write off fear either, because fear will,
Absolutely.
is a great driver. I think what's important to, this is a phrase I hate, lifelong learning. I absolutely loathe it, but I'm going to use it anyway. To not write people off when they have got, maybe you're 32, maybe you're 55, when
Yep.
you come to and you go, do you know what, I've, brought my kids, or I've done whatever, or, I was a fireman, I was a binman, whatever. Now I want to do the thing that I should have done, or be the person I want to do.
How old were you when you put your debut novel out?
56.
This is what we're talking about, people. And it ain't shit. Weren't a hungry caterpillar. It's an absolute banging book. I just read another one this week, Louise Kennedy, Trespasses. I thought, she's great. What is she, 23, 24? Went to the Leaf. I don't know how old the lady is. She's got to be in her 50s.
50s,
I'm like, my God. Yeah. It's an absolutely amazing book. Park that. The fact is, like you're saying, it's never too late to learn, expand, and grow. I think she's written one short story collection.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I reviewed it on TV today. I'm so passionate about it. Brilliant book. But and I think there's another. Is it one of the Penelopes published her first book when she was like 70 odd? I muddle up all my Penelopes. I think it's Lively, one of them. It's one the Booker when she was about 71 or something.
Yeah.
So you can start at any age.
Absolutely. It starts with you. I mean, for a lot of working class people, desire, the opportunity, maybe things have quietened down a bit, or you haven't got so many financial commitments. And now's the time, I'm going to study that subject. It doesn't have to be, English and maths that you absolutely, need for everything these days. Maybe it's a language that you have always wanted to do. You want to be able to say more than a glass of white wine, please. You want to say something, you want to converse or learn about culture. Yeah. And I think that, for me, is so key, that you maybe had to do an apprenticeship at 14, and then that set you on this road that, let's face it, many of us cannot get off that road when you're on it. If you've got a job and you've learned to trade at 18, you are very unlikely to take a U-turn and do something completely different.
And also, I mean, let's say how it is. If you're working class, you're more likely to start popping sprogs early at 21, 22. So by the time you got two kids and you realise, God, I'm still a kid at 25. Too late, I've got toddlers. Well, you got to get them to 18. So that's why people where I come from in their 40s to 50s are nanas and granddads. When you start to become a grandparent, you can start doing a bit more of your own life again. I think my mum was 20 when she had me, and her mum was 15 when she had her. My nan was like 36 when I was born, or something like that. It's incredible. My great nan was 60 when I was born. That's the other thing people don't realise is you're buried in life at 24 for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's another thing we could do with educating particularly our girls, and say, look, just maybe don't have babies so early. Just wait and see how you're feeling at 23, 24.
Absolutely. So tell us about the scholarship.
Well, the National Extension College, I mean, I'm a bit, I don't know. It's quite hard to even talk about it. I feel a bit sort of humbled by the whole thing. They want to do a scholarship in my name because I'm like such a poster boy for what this National Extensions College can do. So the idea of finding people who are like me, educational journey of any age, any background, any gender, whatever, and then putting a scholarship fund behind that to help them on their journey. I mean, it makes me feel so old, but if Storms is doing scholarships, they can be sick. But I think I'm more like that. I'm more like a Vossi Bob, like cool scholarship.
But it's so great to have that, to give somebody that opportunity who might not have thought about it. This isn't for me, or I can't afford it, or maybe, it's not somebody from my background. It's for the clever people, and that doesn't cover me. I think those kind of things are great invitations to people from our community to say, not only have I done it, but, I'm putting the ladder down for you to come up. Yeah. I'm not putting the ladder up like so many people do.
I really want to meet them as well. I don't just want to have like my name on some form somewhere. So I don't know how, obviously my diaries are crazy, but I want to meet. I want to enjoy like how when you have a kid, and you don't want to miss anything. I want to see what happens with this person. I want to track. I want the typical comedian. I need the emotional feedback from their journey. But I'm excited to see what happens and to whom. Genuinely.
Yeah. Who is that? Who is the person that's just going to grab that opportunity with both hands and really make the difference? And why didn't they do it before? I mean, there's, me, storyteller. I'm thinking, why you? What didn't you do? What do you want to be? What's the story of your life that puts you in this position at this moment, wanting to do something that, just some subject that really turns you on? Be so great.
I look forward to seeing how it pans out, definitely.
Me too. Anyway, I think we've been here for about an hour chatting.
Yep.
I nearly said chatting shit. I'll say chatting.
I've got the Siege of Krishnapur to get through, thanks to you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
I just did the Riddle in the Sands as well. That's the other one I had to bloody get through. I just wasn't having it. When you just sit, I was like, if it's your six, they've got to be like the best 6 books ever. And I was like, oh my God, you've done me with 3 that I've not read.
No, they're all really good. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
To us. And
is there another novel on the way? When's your next novel? Come on.
No, I'm 64,000 words into my next novel. It needs some work, but I am loving it. It's going to be great. It'll be out in 2024.
And when is your memoir out yet? Obviously, I had the privilege of pre-reading it. That's August, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is like a sort of National Extensions College story type thing. It is. What a story.
Yeah.
A brilliant book. I loved it.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah. It is. I mean, if ever there is a message for me that I would like to give to anybody coming to education later or through a non-sort of linear journey, it's that you can do it. If I can do it and Russell can do it, you can do it. That's the answer.
See you by the pool, bringing your Penguin Classics.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Yeah.